right? That is not the diploids, the triploids, because now we're talking about plants that can't be pollinated. So for
Yeah,
field scale, whew,
yeah.
that's going to change everything, right? Like those are going to be some valuable seeds, assuming they
So
can hit a quality marker.
I wanted to ask you about that. So I saw a podcast where people were talking about that, and one question I was asking specifically that did not get answered was the so they're saying that they're infertile. So are they infertile to their own hermaphroditic pollen, or are they infertile to all pollen?
All pollen.
All
Yeah, the
pollen, so
triploids.
even a male? That's
So you
insane.
can, yeah, so you can have a THC crop growing right beside a hemp crop of herma like hemp crops are intrinsically hermaphrodite usually because most of the varieties were grown for protein. So once the plants get to a certain age, they just turn male. They just produce male tissues and produce seed to make vegan proteins, right? So you can have a THC triploid crop right beside a hemp crop for protein grains, and you won't get any seeds in your triploids. Yeah, it's insane. It's the next
Yeah.
level, and there's been a bunch of groups working on it, but a couple have announced that they've successfully done this, and then it becomes a matter of like, can we produce triploids that are actually commercially viable? Because producing plants that don't have the agronomic value but don't get pollen, not really like that's not really a business, right? So
Yeah.
um, it's got to have high medical value, high commercial value, a high yields, nice terpenes, all the stuff that we appreciate in cannabis. These new varieties will get there, but it's going to be some expensive seed. It's not, and let's be clear, this is GMO,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So like this is like CRISPR labs that is being used to produce this stuff. And I'm not like totally opposed to GMO. The technology was developed to feed starving people in developing countries. It's been hijacked by companies like Monsanto and like
Yeah.
Bayer crop science to make Roundup ready plants. But in the future, like in the past, it was really designed to like produce drought tolerant vegetable crops, drought tolerant rice crops. Like that was the whole intention of GMO. Now, what does consuming GMO cannabis do to human health? Probably nothing. We're smoking this shit. You know what I mean? Like it, I don't foresee any major. So yeah, I mean, like consuming GMO cannabis, is that going to have human health impacts? I highly doubt it. Even consuming GMO like food crops, I don't think is going to has major human health impacts. What does have human health impacts is consuming vegetables and grains that have been sprayed with Roundup, with glyphosate. So I think that as a technology, CRISPR and genetically modifying is going to take cannabis and all crops to that next level, furthering sustainability in agriculture. But yeah, it's really interesting that it's been hijacked by big evil corporations to spray chemicals on our food, and now we're and those food crops are subsidized by the U.S. government. You know, let's look at what's happening in Europe, right? Like they don't even allow GMO imports because most of them are
No, they're
sprayed with
trying to
glyphosate.
sneak them in now, the fuckers, and I think it's going to be only a matter of time. But we had Medman on the last episode that we put out, and I was talking there about GMO, and like, I'm on the opposite side of the opinion to you because there's a book uh, that I was talking about called Seeds of Destruction by it's either F. William Engdahl or William F. Engdahl, one of those, but surname Engdahl, Engdal, and it's called Seeds of Destruction. It's a really good book, and it tells the true history of the the funding of GMO by the Rockefellers and how the testing is very limited. So in all mammals, it produces this kind of leaky gut syndrome. It makes holes in the gut lining appear
Gross.
after 90 days. They found in rats, and also tumors forming after that. And then they cut off the human trials at bang on 90 days, so it wouldn't really appear too much in the testing. But yeah, he showed that really there's a lot of scientists obviously who are very against it, and they've silenced and suppressed. But it seems that just the very act of changing the DNA or manipulating the DNA in anything will cause mutations, and then mutations in the mammals that go on to consume it. So yeah, I would avoid it
Interesting.
like fucking plague, basically. But it's
If
obviously
you
got
can,
to
so maybe I'll back up and correct myself. It's not that I don't think it has any impact, but consuming glyphosate is a measurable
oh,
impact on it,
absolutely. Fuck
and they
yeah.
can actually
And not
measure
just
your
that, bro. Have you
dude.
seen
They
the
can
amount
measure
of chemicals and pesticides that are like sprayed on our on food crops?
100%.
It's mental.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's
Crazy.
why I grew up in organic agriculture. We don't use a lot of those products, and they can measure the glyphosate in your system.
Like I'm
And
out here
so,
in Morocco at the moment, and some of the fucking things that I see in the shops where people go to like buy their products for the plants out here, the cannabis plants that they're growing to make hash. And it's all this fucking hardcore systemic agrochemical shit. And I'm like, fuck me, what is ending up in the hash out here, you know? So
back when I was younger, the hydro stores used to sell controlled pesticides just in a rubber glove, no label. Here you go. My
Wow.
my original business
ivermectin and
partners
stuff we used to get like that, yeah, in the UK.
my original business partner is dying of brain cancer right now, and I'm almost certain that it's related to all of the unregulated petrochemicals that he was spraying, no mask on, just not even any training or anything. Like, I took a pesticide applicator certificate when I was in my 20s initially. I've renewed it every 5 years since, but I took that because I needed to access certain things, and you can't even buy organic pesticides. To buy pesticides, whether they're organic or chemical, you need to be trained in BC. So I took this
Wow.
course, and that was when it was like a big light bulb for me. I was like, "Whoa, we got to change the way we're doing the weed business, because pulling your shirt over your face while you're spraying bootleg chemical is not good how you live a long, healthy life and watch your grandkids grow up, right?" So
Yeah.
yeah, I made a bunch of changes there, and that's yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of people that still use those chemicals in BC as well. We have a unregulated, on reserve indigenous supply chain for cannabis here, and it's basically all contaminated. And the reason why I know this is that the on reserve sale is happening, but the production of these goods is not necessarily like done by indigenous people in their community, because a bunch of my friends from coming up are selling their illegal weed to the rest, right? So it's like, it's not really indigenous cannabis. It's grown by white guys like me who used to steal power, and they're like running these bootleg operations and selling it on reserve, but there's no enforcement of that because it's in a sovereign territory, right? They govern
Yeah.
themselves. So it's really interesting, that whole black market weed has actually shifted kind of red market in Canada instead of remaining black market, which is a very interesting paradigm shift. So
Huh.
yeah,
So you
let's
wanted to
talk about
talk about males as well, Jeff? You've got some
yeah.
insight on
I
males and selection?
I, I love